Ever felt like someone's pulling the strings behind your back, subtly influencing your choices, emotions, or even your self-worth without you realizing it? Control doesn't always come with loud commands or obvious restraints. It can be quiet, sneaky, and disguised as care or guidance. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics faced their own battles against manipulative forces, whether from within or from others, and they developed powerful strategies to fight back. Today we're diving into 5 Stoic strategies to help you recognize and reclaim your autonomy. If you're tired of feeling like someone else is steering your life, hit that subscribe button. This isn't just about breaking free, it's about taking back control in a way that honors your true self. Let's explore how Stoic wisdom can arm you against manipulation and put you back in the driver's seat of your own life. Recognize the subtle chains of manipulation. Control is often far more insidious than overt commands or visible restraints. It usually hides behind a facade of care, concern, or advice, slowly weaving itself into the fabric of your everyday decisions. Marcus Aurelius, a master of introspection, believed that the first step to reclaiming one's autonomy is recognizing the subtle forms of manipulation that often go unnoticed. He emphasized the importance of self-awareness and vigilance in understanding how external forces shape our thoughts and actions. Manipulators rarely resort to blunt force. Instead, they employ subtle strategies like guilt-tripping, flattery, or the illusion of indispensability to influence your behavior. They may present their control as concern for your well-being, convincing you that their way is the best or only way, making you feel indebted or reliant on their guidance. Marcus would argue that these forms of manipulation are even more dangerous than overt control because they operate in the shadows, gradually conditioning you to surrender your own judgment and independence without realizing it. The first step to fighting back is to shine a light on these tactics, making the invisible visible. Marcus Aurelius taught that we must be the guardians of our own minds, constantly reflecting on why we do what we do and whether our actions align with our true intentions. He believed that by examining our motivations and the influences behind them, we can start to identify when someone else's desires have quietly taken precedence over our own. Manipulative individuals often use emotional hooks, like guilt, fear, or the promise of approval, to subtly steer your actions. They might frame their opinions as harmless advice, or make you feel that your decisions are never quite right without their input. This creates a dependency, making you second-guess your own instincts and defer to their judgment, even when it feels wrong. Marcus would argue that this slow erosion of self-trust is one of the most harmful effects of manipulation, because it leaves you disconnected from your inner compass, unable to distinguish between your authentic desires and the implanted suggestions of others. Recognizing these manipulative chains requires a keen sense of self-awareness and a willingness to question the motives of those around you. Marcus Aurelius would advise keeping a mental distance from others' opinions and emotions, giving yourself space to evaluate their impact on your own thoughts and feelings. Ask yourself, does this person's influence leave me feeling empowered or diminished? Am I making choices out of genuine desire, or am I being subtly coerced into aligning with someone else's agenda? Marcus believed that such questions are crucial for regaining control over your own life, as they allow you to disentangle your mind from the invisible strings of manipulation. It's not about being suspicious of everyone, but about staying alert to the ways in which others may encroach upon your personal sovereignty. The Stoic practice of self-reflection, as Marcus exemplified in his meditations, is a powerful tool against manipulation. By regularly examining your relationships and your responses to them, you create a protective layer of awareness that guards against unwanted influence. Manipulators rely on your complacency, on you not noticing the small concessions you make each day until you are living a life shaped by their desires instead of your own. Marcus would advocate for reclaiming that space within yourself, asserting your right to think and act independently. This doesn't mean cutting off everyone who tries to advise you, but it does mean being selective about whose opinions you allow to shape your path. Ultimately, Marcus Aurelius believed that freedom begins with the mind, and recognizing the subtle chains of manipulation is a crucial step in safeguarding that freedom. By cultivating awareness of how others' behaviors impact your choices, you can start to set boundaries that protect your autonomy. Marcus would remind us that no one can control you without your consent, and that consent often comes in the form of passive acceptance of influence. Take back your power by questioning, reflecting, and staying true to your own values and intentions. In doing so, you break free from the subtle chains and reclaim the sovereignty over your own life that is rightfully yours. Set firm boundaries and enforce them relentlessly. Marcus Aurelius emphasized the importance of maintaining boundaries, not just to keep others at bay, but to protect your inner peace and preserve your autonomy. In a world where manipulation often disguises itself as kindness, setting firm boundaries is a powerful act of self-respect and a clear signal to others that you will not be easily controlled. Manipulative people test boundaries constantly, pushing just a little further each time to see how much they can get away with. They might start by asking small favors, making subtle demands on your time, or gently pressuring you to conform to their expectations. At first, these actions seem harmless, almost insignificant. However, each time you concede, even slightly, you give away a piece of your control. Marcus would argue that allowing others to repeatedly encroach upon your personal limits is not just a sign of weakness, it's an erosion of your very sense of self. Boundaries are not just protective barriers. They are declarations of what you will and will not tolerate in your life, and they must be defended with unwavering resolve. Boundaries are about more than just saying no to others. They are about saying yes to yourself. Marcus Aurelius believed that the strength to maintain your own space, mentally, emotionally, and physically, was an essential part of living virtuously. He taught that we are not obligated to meet every demand placed upon us, nor should we feel guilty for prioritizing our own well-being. Yet manipulators are experts at making you feel selfish or unreasonable for standing your ground. They might frame their requests as harmless, their oversteps as caring gestures, or their criticisms as constructive advice meant to help you. They twist your desire to be kind and accommodating into a tool they can use to inch further into your life. Marcus would advise that in the face of such tactics, it is crucial to hold your line firmly and without apology. It's not about being unkind. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and mental space are valuable and not to be freely given away to those who do not respect them. Enforcing boundaries is not a one-time act, but an ongoing process. Marcus Aurelius would encourage a vigilant approach, regularly assessing your interactions and adjusting your boundaries as necessary. Manipulative people are persistent. They will continue to test and probe, looking for weak spots in your resolve. Marcus believed that it is through consistent reinforcement that boundaries gain their true power. When someone crosses the line, respond immediately and clearly. Don't allow minor infractions to slide, because each ignored overstep sets a precedent that your boundaries are negotiable. Marcus would argue that this relentless enforcement is not about being rigid or inflexible. It's about maintaining control over your own life and making it clear that you are not susceptible to coercion or manipulation. Boundaries should be like stone walls, not easily breached and designed to protect what is within. Marcus Aurelius also taught that the purpose of boundaries is not just to keep negative influences out, but to create a safe space where you can grow, reflect, and thrive. By setting limits on what you will accept from others, you carve out the mental and emotional room you need to pursue your own goals and live in accordance with your values. Boundaries are a form of self-care, a recognition that you deserve to be treated with respect and that your needs are valid. Marcus would argue that those who refuse to honor your boundaries are not worthy of your time or energy. Their disregard is a reflection of their own issues, not a commentary on your worth. By enforcing boundaries, you send a powerful message to others and to yourself that you are in control of your life. Ultimately, Marcus Aurelius would counsel that setting and enforcing boundaries is one of the most effective strategies to combat manipulation. It is a proactive measure that asserts your autonomy and defines the terms on which you are willing to engage with others. When boundaries are clear, firm, and consistently upheld, manipulators lose their foothold. They are forced to either respect your limits or reveal their true intentions, at which point you can decide whether they have a place in your life. For Marcus, the goal was always to protect the sanctity of your mind and spirit, and boundaries are the first line of defense. By guarding your space with unwavering conviction, you reclaim your power and ensure that you live life on your own terms, free from the controlling influence of others. Master the art of emotional detachment. One of the most potent strategies Marcus Aurelius used to maintain control over his own mind was the practice of emotional detachment. He believed that external events and other people's actions have power over us only if we allow our emotions to become entangled with them. In a world filled with manipulative tactics and subtle forms of control, emotional detachment is a shield that protects your inner peace and clarity. Manipulators often exploit emotions, guilt, fear, anger, or even love, to steer you toward their desired outcomes. They thrive on emotional reactions, knowing that once they have hooked into your feelings, they can guide your behavior like a puppet on strings. Marcus taught that to regain control, you must learn to observe your emotions without being overwhelmed by them, to recognize when someone is trying to pull your strings, and to respond with reason rather than impulse. Emotional detachment does not mean being cold or uncaring. It means developing the strength to separate your actions from the emotional turbulence that others try to impose upon you. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the importance of seeing events as neutral, stripped of the emotional weight that we typically attach to them. He believed that what truly affects us is not the events themselves, but the judgments we make about them. Manipulators use this to their advantage, crafting narratives that play on your fears, insecurities, and desires. They might paint themselves as victims to trigger your sympathy, use harsh words to provoke anger, or subtly flatter you to win your favor. Each of these tactics aims to cloud your judgment and make you act against your better interests. Marcus would argue that the key to breaking free from this influence is to detach emotionally from the provocations and see them for what they are, attempts to control your mind through your heart. By taking a step back and examining situations with a calm, rational mindset, you regain the ability to make decisions based on your own values and not on the emotional manipulations of others. Practicing emotional detachment also means learning to pause before reacting. Marcus Aurelius believed that the gap between stimulus and response is where our freedom lies. When faced with a manipulative comment, a guilt-inducing plea, or a pressure-filled demand, it's natural to feel an immediate emotional surge. However, Marcus would advise taking a moment to breathe, reflect, and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is this reaction based on facts, or is it being provoked by someone else's agenda? By creating this mental space, you can choose your response rather than being swept away by an emotional tide. This pause allows you to align your actions with your own principles, not the pressures exerted by someone trying to control you. Marcus believed that true strength lies in this kind of self-control, knowing that while you cannot always change what happens around you, you can always control how you respond to it. Emotional detachment also involves redefining your boundaries on a psychological level. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the concept of the inner citadel, a mental stronghold where your values, principles, and sense of self are protected from external assaults. When you master emotional detachment, you strengthen this inner citadel, ensuring that no matter how persuasive or persistent someone's manipulations are, they cannot breach the core of who you are. This doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It means acknowledging them without letting them dictate your actions. Marcus would argue that emotions are valuable signals, but they should be consulted, not obeyed blindly. By maintaining a clear sense of who you are and what you stand for, you can navigate manipulative scenarios with your integrity intact, refusing to be swayed by emotional bait. Ultimately, Marcus Aurelius would advocate emotional detachment as a way to reclaim your autonomy and protect yourself from the unseen forces that seek to control your life. By observing your emotions without letting them dominate, you maintain clarity and strength in even the most challenging interactions. Manipulators lose their power when you stop reacting on instinct and start responding with intention. Marcus believed that emotional detachment doesn't make you less human. It makes you a master of your own destiny, free to act in accordance with your true self, rather than in reaction to the manipulations of others. In this mastery lies the ultimate freedom, the freedom to live unbound by the emotional traps set by those who seek to control you without your consent. Reclaim your power by taking responsibility for your choices. Marcus Aurelius often emphasized that the power to shape your life lies not in the hands of others, but within your own mind and actions. He believed that taking full responsibility for your choices is one of the most liberating acts you can perform. Manipulators thrive on convincing you that you have no real control, that your decisions are forced by circumstances, their influence, or even by your own emotions. They seek to blur the line between their will and your own, making you feel powerless and dependent. Marcus would argue that the antidote to this insidious control is to reclaim your power by consciously taking responsibility for every choice you make, no matter how small. This involves recognizing that while you cannot control external events or other people's actions, you are always in command of your responses, your decisions, and your perspective. Owning your choices means acknowledging that you are not a passive player in your own life story, but the active author who holds the pen. Manipulators often rely on shifting blame to keep you off balance. They might accuse you of being the cause of their unhappiness, suggest that you're overreacting, or make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. This tactic is designed to make you question your actions, to second-guess your instincts, and ultimately, to keep you pliable to their influence. Marcus Aurelius would advise you to resist this narrative by taking a firm stance on your own responsibility, not for their feelings or outcomes, but for your own actions. When you stop accepting the blame that manipulators try to place on you, you disrupt their control and reclaim your autonomy. Marcus believed that by owning your decisions, you create a clear boundary between what is yours to manage and what is not, allowing you to act with confidence and clarity, rather than being mired in doubt and guilt. Taking responsibility also means refusing to play the victim, even when you've been wronged or manipulated. Marcus Aurelius believed that adopting a victim mindset strips you of your power and keeps you tethered to the very forces you seek to escape. Instead of dwelling on how someone else has tried to control or manipulate you, Marcus would encourage you to focus on what you can do to change the situation. This doesn't mean ignoring the harm caused, but rather refusing to let it define you or dictate your future actions. It's about shifting from a mindset of, "This is happening to me," to, "I can decide how to respond." When you take responsibility for your reactions, you move from being controlled to being in control. This shift in perspective is a powerful act of self-liberation, breaking the cycle of manipulation by placing the reins of your life firmly back in your own hands. Marcus Aurelius also believed that taking responsibility is an ongoing practice of self-reflection and adjustment. It requires being honest with yourself about where you've allowed others to overstep, where you've made compromises that don't align with your values, and where you've made decisions out of fear or pressure rather than genuine intent. This kind of introspection isn't about self-criticism. It's about recognizing patterns that need to change and committing to doing better. Marcus would argue that when you take ownership of your choices, you also take control of your growth. You become more resilient, more aware, and less susceptible to the manipulative tactics that others might employ. Responsibility isn't a burden, it's the key to your freedom and the cornerstone of a life lived on your own terms. Ultimately, Marcus Aurelius would counsel that reclaiming your power through personal responsibility is essential in breaking free from those who try to control you. By acknowledging that your life is shaped by your choices, you dismantle the manipulator's influence and affirm your own agency. Every decision you make becomes a conscious act of self-empowerment, a statement that you are not defined by the actions of others, but by your own values and intentions. Marcus believed that the path to true freedom starts with the simple but profound act of owning your life, of standing firm in the knowledge that while you cannot control everything that happens, you are always in control of how you respond. This sense of responsibility is not just a defense against manipulation. It's the foundation of a strong, independent, and purpose-driven life. By taking responsibility, you reclaim the narrative of your existence, ensuring that it is you, and not someone else, who decides the course of your journey. As we circle back to where we began, let's reflect on the questions that brought us here. Remember the feeling of being controlled without your consent, like a ship caught in a storm, directionless and at the mercy of outside forces? Now perhaps you see that the control was never truly out of your hands. It was always a matter of awareness, boundaries, emotional mastery, and taking responsibility. You've journeyed through strategies inspired by Marcus Aurelius, discovering that the power to reclaim your autonomy doesn't come from resisting others, but from mastering yourself. The power to change is now in your hands. You've seen the path and gained the tools, but the question remains: what will you do with this knowledge? Will you let these lessons fade, or will you take that first decisive step, no matter how small, toward reclaiming your mind and your choices? Don't just close this video and move on. Apply what you've learned today and start shaping the life you want to live, free from manipulation and full of purpose. As you reflect on this journey, ask yourself, are you living a life defined by your choices, or are you still caught in someone else's influence? The real question is not just about breaking free, it's about choosing what comes next. Are you ready to take control? Remember, mastery of the mind isn't just a skill, it's the greatest freedom you can achieve. The lessons of Stoic wisdom aren't just about avoiding control. They are about embracing your power to shape your own destiny. Life's greatest battles aren't won against external foes. They are fought and won within. Just as the sculptor chisels away at a block of stone to reveal a masterpiece, you hold the chisel of your own mind. The shape of your future, your choices, your freedom, it's all in your hands. The warrior's journey never truly ends. It evolves. And now, it's your turn to take control of the battlefield of your own mind. Imagine a life where every challenge becomes an opportunity, where your boundaries are respected, and where your choices are guided not by fear or manipulation, but by your own clear intentions. That life is within reach. The future is not something that happens to you, it's something you create. What kind of future will you build with the power of your mind? This may be the end of our discussion today, but the real journey is just beginning. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep striving for mastery. You've taken the first steps on a path that never truly ends. Continue to walk it with courage, curiosity, and conviction. Take a moment to reflect on what you've learned today. What has this revealed about you? And what will you do with that knowledge? Your journey of self-mastery is yours to define. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button and drop a comment below. What's the first step you'll take to reclaim your power? Let's keep this conversation going, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on mastering your mind and your life. The real question now is, are you ready to start living by these principles today?